Testing 1, 2, 3. Warning, the following video may contain adult language and themes. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. If you have a problem with this, stop playing this video now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You had your chance to back out. No turning back now. Hey, what's up, everybody? I just got done watching a pretty bad horror movie. It was pretty bad. And it was almost so bad it was good, but not really. A lot of horror movies are that way, you know. People champion them as being so bad they're good, but this one, not quite. It falls short. My main gripe with this horror movie is that the villain did not intimidate me at all. He's basically an old man. Yeah, his father was a Nazi, but that's all he is. That's what it boils down to. Is he's an old man. And so you might be thinking, well, you know, Jigsaw was an old man, and he was fucking badass. But the thing is, Jigsaw had really cool fucking traps. And his beliefs were pretty clear, and it was an interesting belief system he had. But with this, not so much. He has some traps, but he also kills people. But he has some traps, and they're not very interesting at all. I think one of them, like, impaled someone, and another one was like it involved a spear and a chair, and and let's just say it really goes up your ass. I know that was a bad joke, but anyway. Yeah, and his traps were just very uninspired. They weren't very, very cool to watch. There wasn't much gore in this movie either. Not a lot. A lot of the deaths are actually not shown on screen. And the one with the spear and the chair, you don't actually see any blood either. I mean, the guy just goes and he dies. He falls over. I mean, but the actual image of what it did is actually pretty disturbing, but you don't actually see it. So, I mean, and the reason why this is a problem is because horror movies, you know, I'm being a little generic here, but horror movies usually fall into two camps, in my opinion. I mean, there are gray areas, but for the most part, there's two camps. One of them is the very high-class horror movies, the ones that are really good, that they're pretty much the Stanley Kubrick of horror movies. This includes the first Nightmare on Elm Street, this includes the first Halloween, this includes, like, the first Psycho movie. You know, great horror movies like that. Ones that really set the standard. And play more the suspense and creativity rather than the gore. I mean, some of them do have gore, but they're higher art. You know, they're considered higher art. And there are ones that appeal to the visceral nature, that realize their crap. So they're just like, okay, we realize we're not geniuses, so we're just gonna throw all the tits, ass, and blood at the screen and hope for the best. And you know what? As far as exploitation movies go, they work most of the time. The problem with this one is that it doesn't excel in either. Oh, I haven't even mentioned the name of it yet. It's called Crawlspace. It was directed by David Schmoller. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly, but he did the Puppet Master series. He also did Tourist Trap, I believe, and the music was scored by, I can't pronounce his name, I can't remember either, but the guy who scored the music also did Puppet Master and Tourist Trap. Now, the problem with this movie is that it doesn't really do either very well. It's not high art, because the acting really sucks, and it's campy, but it doesn't appeal to the visceral nature either, because while it does have a few tit shots, it's very tame as far as exploitation flicks go. And the blood and gore is pretty tame as well, as far as, you know, horror movies go. So it doesn't really excel at either. It feels confused. That, and like I said, the main villain is just not threatening. There are moments in the film where they try to make him seem deep, like Jigsaw, but they have him do, like, weird things that are just odd. Like, for instance, he plays Russian roulette every night, and, you know, he's supposed to be playing with death, but when he did it, the actor just didn't pull it off very well. He seems like a guy from a European country, a method actor who's confused and doesn't know why he's in this movie. Sort of looks like he has, like, Alzheimer's or something. And there were some hot chicks in this movie, but like I said, they only show, like, the breasts a few times. There is some simulated sex, but it's all under the sheets. So yeah, it doesn't really appeal to either side, the high art of horror movies or the exploitation side. It doesn't really satisfy either. And this movie, I guess the directing and cinematography was pretty solid. It doesn't feel like direct to DVD material. I could imagine this being released in the theaters in the 80s. It's not. It doesn't have poor quality when it comes to directing. But it just feels confused. The villain is not well defined. Um, the villain also keeps this slave, in a cage, and the slave was not a very good actor either. Um, she she it was like she was an actor trying to portray a very deprived individual. She didn't, convince me. And her makeup looked really bad. It looked like makeup. They showed her really beaten up and like had dry mouth and like scars and everything. And it just looked like makeup. I mean, she didn't do it convincingly. There are horror movies that do that very convincingly. You're really convinced that this is a depraved individual and that they're really at the end of the rope. But she didn't do it very well. The score is pretty good, probably not as good as Tourist Trap or Puppet Master, but that could probably be due to the fact that the movie doesn't complement the soundtrack very well. Um, so overall, I'd probably give it 1 to 1.5 stars out of 5, maybe 2 if I were being generous. This is just not that great of a movie, people. I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe if you have to see every single horror movie out there, then I'd recommend it. One thing about the the female protagonist in this movie is that she wasn't very. I mean, like they played her up as really, really hot in this movie, but she wasn't really that hot when you think about it. I mean, it's even for like that time period, she wasn't that hot, and there were a lot of other women who were kind of hot, but no one really stood out. The one girl who does bear some of her breasts is probably the hottest one in the whole cast, and even then, she's not like really babe-alicious. I don't know. And another thing is that a lot of the deaths, like I said, happen off screen. Like, there's one scene where the main bad guy kills another guy with a knife, and you just see the main bad guy, just pop the knife out, and then it cuts away, and then the next thing you see is the guy you just killed's eyes in a jar, so you don't even see it. So it's like they do a lot of that, and I don't know. The deaths just weren't that creative. Um, and even at the very end, they cut away at the death. This review's full of spoilers, but I don't care because I don't think you should watch this. It's called Crawlspace. It was made in the 80s. I don't know how well it did at the box office. Couldn't have done too well because it didn't get a sequel. So yeah, I'd avoid this one. Maybe if you catch it on cable late at night and there's nothing better on, maybe you can put yourself through it. But yeah, while I did enjoy Ghost Keeper to a certain extent, this one is just kind of a disappointment. I guess I wouldn't pay money to watch this. At the very least, I guess if you get it for free, then you'll just see a few tits and some laughable deaths. But that's it. Yep. Cheers. Take it easy, people.